Hello and welcome to You Talking to Me, the Euranet Plus weekly debate. Since the Brexit referendum took place some days ago, EU leaders are meeting non-stop in order to try to get control of this unprecedented situation. In order to discuss about this topic, we have invited today two members of the European Parliament. So I would like to welcome Sajjad Karim. He's a British member of the European Parliament for the Conservatives. Welcome.
Very pleased to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we have also here Mr. Philippe Lamberts. He's a Belgian member of the European Parliament and co-chair of the Green Party. Welcome.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. I would like to start with you, Mr. Karim, with a very straightforward question. Did British people who voted for the Leave option make a mistake?
Well, it's a very clear decision that they have delivered, and therefore we are bound to respect it and to try and ensure that we produce a result that delivers it. But I think there was a real lack of awareness of the true issues amongst big parts of the British electorate and a real lack of understanding of the potential consequences. But as the consequences are unfolding, it's beginning to dawn upon people a real realization that much of the things that they had been warned about are actually now playing out. And it's only now that they are beginning to realize and understand the true implications and the scale of the decision that they had been asked to make.
And did President Cameron make a mistake when calling for this referendum? I've read in some media that he will pass to history for being the worst president of the United Kingdom. I don't know, what are your thoughts about this?
Well, I think one of the reasons why David chose to resign immediately after the result was announced is because of two main issues. One, he didn't want to be remembered as the Prime Minister that ultimately took the United Kingdom out of the European Union. I don't believe in any way that that was ever his wish, will or intention. But also alongside that, as soon as you trigger Article 50 and start official procedures to remove the United Kingdom from the European Union, a big question mark arises over the unity of the United Kingdom itself. In particular, the Scottish question and the Northern Irish question, but also there is the question of Gibraltar as well now that has to be taken into account. So I don't believe he wanted to be remembered in history as being the Prime Minister who took the United Kingdom out of the European Union and potentially disintegrated the United Kingdom either.
But was it a mistake to call for the referendum in the middle of this huge crisis Europe is facing since some years ago, in the sense like maybe British people are going to regret when the crisis hopefully is over and we are in a more calm period? Because
I think actually there's a need for some understanding of the context that was unfolding in the United Kingdom. After the last set of European elections in 2014, once the Parliament was reconstituted, I actually took the step at that stage of challenging Mr. Schulz and stood for President of the European Parliament. And the reason why I did that was that I wanted to make sure that I raised my voice at that stage to spell out to the European Parliament and the European institutions the very real difficulties that we were beginning to face in the United Kingdom because Europe was not listening. Now it's increasingly clear that that was not a situation that was isolated to the United Kingdom. And I'm deeply worried about some of these forces now playing out in countries like the Netherlands, like France and other places as well, Greece, Spain, Italy. It is everywhere, it's spreading. But at that stage, the European Union simply did not want to listen to the very clear message that I personally delivered from the floor of the House that day. And these are now the ramifications of Europe not listening.
If you want to add something on this, Mr. Lamberts, and also I would like to know, in your opinion, what has failed in the Remain campaign also at EU level? We have seen most of European Union authorities very silent during this period.
I think it was a British referendum, and it was only right that the battle would be fought by British politicians. Now, what has failed? I pretty well remember David Cameron coming to Brussels to negotiate a sort of new arrangement with the other 27. And then he let out a sentence like, "I love the United Kingdom, I hate Brussels," or "I don't love Brussels." And that was the start of his campaign. I mean, how powerful a message. I want you to stay with Brussels, but I don't like Brussels. I mean, I've been a salesman for 17, 18 years of my life. I can tell you this is probably not the best sales act that I've ever seen. And he had been hammering the European Union for years on end before triggering this referendum. Again, how credible could he be as the vanguard of staying into the European Union? To that, I must add that when I saw the Labour Party being quite cool to the issue, not really committed, well, when you add all of this, it's hardly a surprise that the Leave won. To be honest, I expected the Remain to win, as I believe even the Brexiteers expected. Now, everyone is in for a surprise. We have to deal with that. But the first thing that I would say is that we should give the United Kingdom a little time to sort things out and to start realizing exactly how momentous this decision potentially is. It's for the United Kingdom to start to trigger Article 50. And no one can twist the United Kingdom's arm in doing that. It's for the British authorities, and well, without a constitution, not sure it's the government or it's the parliament that has to take that decision. But anyway, it should be carefully considered. And then Europeans should stand ready to negotiate with the United Kingdom, I would say, without being prepared to do sweetheart deals. I mean, the rules are known. You want to keep access to the single market. You know the rules. You have to contribute to the budget. You have to apply EU legislation. You have to respect freedom of circulation of EU citizens. So without weakness on that, but without a spirit of revenge. And that's a bit what I heard in the initial days after the referendum. You could feel in the declarations of a number of European leaders a sort of spirit of revenge. You wanted to quit, now you'll pay for this. And you know what? United Kingdom is located 35 kilometers away from the continent and will remain there. United Kingdom is our neighbor, and therefore it's in everyone's best interest that A, we take the time to really think about the next steps, and second, when we start negotiating, we do it respecting our common interests, because, well, within or outside of the European Union, well, we have common interests.
Okay. I've seen in many articles in media pointing out that maybe Brexit will never take place, and they were pointing out several elements, like, for example, that the result of the referendum is not binding and it still needs to be approved by the British Parliament, which there is a majority of people that they want to stay in the UK, that Scotland may block the exit of the UK. They are saying also that consequences are still unknown. So maybe when they realize or when they are more clear, people will step back. They are saying that it already happened in the past, like when the Irish people voted against the Treaty of Lisbon and then finally they adopted. So is this an option? I mean, is it an option that the Brexit will never take place?
I think the core guiding issue in all of this is that democracy must be respected and democratic processes must be respected. Now, as things stand at this stage, we have a vote from the British people, 52% almost to 48%. But as things move on, if Europe provides time to the United Kingdom, it very much depends, one, on processes, and secondly, on what the public mood is. If there is no public mood and no demand from the British public to have a further say on this issue, then I'm sorry, the decision that has been made must absolutely be adhered to the letter. But if the British public, using democratic processes, make it absolutely clear that they wish to have either a new say or a further say, or to revise the say that they have had in some way, then that is part of the democratic process also.
What is a democratic process in this way? Like how the public opinion could express this mood?
Well, yesterday, for instance, there was about 10,000 people that went and stood outside the Houses of Parliament in London, in Westminster, and protested, raising placards, "We will miss you," spelt EU. showing affection towards the European Union. And these are sites that I never, ever envisaged that I would see on the streets of the United Kingdom.
So it's a second referendum a possibility?
It depends. I don't want to preempt anything of the sort because at this moment in time, as a committed Democrat, I have in front of me an absolutely clear decision. But democratic processes, if they are given time and if things remain as they are, then that must be adhered to. But if using democratic processes, people want to have a further revision or a further say, then dependent upon what type of situation public pressure creates, then as a Democrat, one has to respond to that. So it's entirely in the hands of the British public now.
What struck me is that when you look at not just the faces, but the language of the leaders of the Brexit camp, they expected to lose, not to win. They have zero plan as to what to do now, because otherwise we would have expected, okay, I'm Boris Johnson, I will candidate for leadership of the Tory party, and of course my first act as a new PM will be to table an Article 50 request to the European Union. He didn't say that. What he said is, well, we should take time to consider and all the rest of it, which shows that actually he was utterly unprepared. Or as for the UKIP, winning deprives them of their raison d'être, and therefore I can understand that they are actually not that happy with the result. Now, what I see is a total breakdown of leadership in the United Kingdom. You see the Tory party that was torn between people like Sajjad Karim, who were campaigning for Remain, and I would say that the majority of his colleagues here were doing likewise, and increasingly vociferous minority in the party that wanted Brexit, but you see the Labour Party collapsing. I do believe that the next say that British citizens should have is a general election. Mm-hmm. This is basically what needs to be done now. We need to clarify leadership in the United Kingdom, either way, and then we can start talking.
I would like
on Philippe's point about quickly, the rationale for the existence of UKIP, actually that has now changed as of yesterday. Initially, the reason for their existence was to take the UK out of the European Union, and this is something that should concern everybody. Yeah. Now, their reason for existence is to destroy the European Union. Yeah, it has changed.
Mm-hmm. I remember Nigel Farage saying, this is the first brick that we are taking out of the wall and now to the next. Yes. That's correct. Yeah.
I would like to include in this debate some questions coming from our Euranet radio members. So I would like to listen, please, to the question coming from RTVF, the Belgian Public Radio, from our colleague Olivier Henrion.
Good morning. My question is actually a question everybody is asking here in Belgium. Why do we have to wait 2 months, 3 months, or maybe more before any formal decision is being taken on the Brexit? Or, in other words, as Charles Michel, our Prime Minister, said before the summit, why do we have to pay the bill for the consequences of a decision that we in Belgium have not taken?
This question is more for you because Mr. Lamberts already gave his views.
A decision has been reached and conveyed by the referendum, but there are processes which existed before the referendum which must now be put into place. Now, the triggering of Article 50 is entirely now in the hands of a British government, and the British government is acting entirely in accordance with the rules and the space provided within those rules. I hope that today, actually, post the summit and the conversations that have taken place and after the parliamentary debate that has taken place, that there is a realization amongst our European colleagues and family that actually at this particular moment in time, the UK itself has been caught off guard by this referendum result. And therefore, we are in a need for two things. One, time, and secondly, some political space. Yeah. And if we are afforded and provided that, that will, above all, it will give the British people an opportunity to assess what sort of democratic processes they wish to utilize to move this thing forward, as to whether they want to continue in the direction and path that they have stated in this referendum, or do they want to in some way use legitimate democratic processes to move this in a different direction. And that is what we really are appealing to our European brethren today, asking for that time and that political space.
Okay.
Well, I agree with that, and I would say that Charles Michel again behaves like the trigger-happy politician he is. He lets again emotion dominate his actions rather than reasoning. When he speaks about the price that the EU 27 would have to pay for waiting, I don't understand. Because the real price is being paid by the United Kingdom. I mean, the longer the period of uncertainty, the heavier the price will be for the United Kingdom. It is not really a price that we need to pay. And again, just imagine that the British citizens would reconsider and that ultimately Article 50 is not triggered because, well, an arrangement has been found. I do believe that this would reinforce the European Union rather than weaken it. And frankly speaking, don't tell me that the reason why the EU has been weakened the last decade is because of the uncertainty around the United Kingdom. Let's face it, the Eurozone is not viable as it is working today. We have a problem with commonly managing our borders and having a common immigration and asylum policy. I could name a number of issues where Europe is stuck, and not just because of the United Kingdom.
Okay. And I would like to include another question coming from another member from Polski Radio, our colleague Joachim Cicierski. Let's listen to the question, please.
Hello from Warsaw. After the UK voted to leave the EU, we can observe a new division of roles in the European Union. Immediately, Germany, France and Italy took over the leadership role in the western part of the EU. However, in the central and eastern part of Europe, we see that Poland has a strong ambition to become a new leader. Does Poland have a chance to become a commander in this area? And is the West able to accept the new role of Poland?
So if United Kingdom leaves, there's now a new distribution of powers, let's say, within the European Union. So countries are asking themselves what their places are. Well, very quickly, please.
I would say I understand the resentment from countries like Poland, which are big countries, which are a bit skeptical at the sort of self-appointed leadership of the European Union taken by the big three. Frankly speaking, I'm not sure that this was the wisest thing to do. Now, can Poland accede to a commander's position? Well, no one is really commander. Well, maybe Germany at this time, but also because other member states are not standing up to Germany. But of course, I would welcome Poland at the table playing a leading role. I would expect that. But then we do have a problem if the Polish government is behaving in a way that in certain aspects betrays the basic values of the European Union. So if you want leadership, you have to deserve it by showing leadership on carrying the values of the European Union. But I would welcome that.
Mm-hmm. We are running out of time, but I would like to finish with the questions about the increase of racist attacks. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights have urged the British authorities to stop these racist attacks that they have been increasing in the last weeks, in the last days. You yourself, you have been a victim of threats in the social media. So I would like to know, in your opinion, is there a risk of a breakup within the British society?
I think we're going through some very, very difficult and testing times in the United Kingdom. The sorts of actions and languages that are being used are reminiscent of the early 1970s. And for many decades, we had got beyond the situation where we now find ourselves. But the responsibility for that lies very squarely at the doorstep of those who are campaigning for the United Kingdom to leave the European Union. They have given people this impression that by voting for leave, they were actually voting for foreigners to be made to leave the United Kingdom. And a foreigner, once again, is defined as somebody who is visibly different to a white English person. We had moved beyond these things in the United Kingdom, and it's actually a very, very sad day to find ourselves back in this position. But if I may, just very quickly as well, One of the other issues that was a big part of the campaign was sovereignty and how Britain is going to be taking back control. So this question that you have put about how the remaining 27 nations are now going to divide power between themselves, as a Brit, this pains me greatly because today, now, if this does come to fruition, I find myself in a situation where my Prime Minister, rather than being able to walk through that door and sit at the table, has now got to get on a flight and go to Berlin, go to Paris, go to Rome or go to Warsaw and literally plead with their leaders to take up the British case at a European level. Where's the sovereignty in that?
I agree.
It really is just an absolutely crazy decision that has been made.
I'm afraid we have to leave it here. Thanks both for being here. And this is just the beginning of the process, so we will continue reporting and discussing about this topic here in Euranet Plus. Thanks for watching.